What's up, guys? We got a lot to talk about today. The Freedom of Russia Legion and the Russian Volunteer Corps are two militant groups that are against Russia that operate inside of Ukraine to attack Russia. Their major debut was last May when they took over the Gravyaron checkpoint as well as the town of Shebinko and a couple other ones in the Belgorod region. They've become active again and heavy fights have been taken across the Kursk and Belgorod Oblast. There's been heavy fighting at the Gravyaron checkpoint and the Russians have captured— that sounds weird. The good Russians have captured this settlement of Tetniko inside of Russia. Okay, little update. I just finished the video and they've actually captured more than just this settlement. They managed to capture Glotovo south of the Gravyaron checkpoint, which is where the whole thing happened last May, as well as this small little crossing at Lozovaya Rudka, and one more over here in the settlement, the southern half of Novovaya Tavalzhanka. Lots of cyber attacks hitting media spaces have hit the Belgorod region, likely either as an attempt to control information leaving the situation, or to cause panic and disorganize the Russians even more. It also makes sense why overnight an oil refinery in Oriol was hit, which sends a lot of fuel to the Belgorod region. More on that, Ukrainian drones were able to hit a massive oil refinery in Nizhny Novgorod. From what I read, this is the second largest oil exporting refinery in the world, and it accounts for about 5% of Russia's entire oil production. It seems like Ukraine is just hitting bigger and bigger targets with these drone strikes now. But it's not really a drone strike, it's more like drive the drone into the thing and blow up. Just like back in last May, it's unlikely that the good Russians are going to hold these areas for too much longer. This is mostly kind of a go in, do a raid, cause some panic, and head out type of operation. But ahead of the Russian elections, it definitely doesn't make Putin look good, although they can probably just censor everything to make it look like it never even happened. Heading to the front, we have one update about what's going on around Novomihailovka, which is one of the biggest battles going on right now on this Donetsk part of the front line. The Russians took control of Mariinka, which is now home to approximately 3 atoms of cement after all of the shelling, and one of the main tactical goals that they had was that they could flank Novomihailovka, which had been a strong standing settlement from the beginning. Recently, the Russians have been advancing south into Novomihailovka. It's about from maybe this line or so. They pushed into the south of the settlement, and they were pushing down from Mariinka into Pobieda to try to flank. This was going good, but then the Ukrainians did a counterattack south of Mariinka, which restricted the Russians to just this road outside of the settlement. It was initially even worse, with the Russians only controlling about this area, but they expanded their northern flank, which would have prevented a big counterattack into the settlement of Pobieda itself. Nonetheless, this makes Russian movement and supply through this road a lot more difficult, so it's probably given Novomihailovka a bit more time. There were some Ukrainian sources predicting it would fall at the beginning of this month, like in the first week or so, but they managed to hold on long enough to do a counterattack like this, which may delay or even reverse the momentum that the Russians have. After Avdiivka fell, Novomihailovka right now is probably the biggest settlement that Russia wants to capture on the front line, because it's definitely the most fortified in this little line of settlements right here, and the Russians are hoping to go through one and then just kind of work their way up until they reach Kurahove, which is the main Ukrainian stronghold in this area. More news off the front: the US finally has got an aid package going through. I think it's about $300 million. The good thing about this one is that it's guaranteed. It doesn't have to go through Congress, which is where the current opposition to Ukraine aid is happening. The president is able to just send this through because it came from Department of Defense stocks. It should have artillery shells, some HIMARS ammo, as well as some air defense missiles and other just upkeep supplies. And this will be good because a major factor that contributed to the fall of Avdiivka was that the Ukrainians didn't have enough artillery to hit the Russians effectively and winnow out the personnel.